Amid global outcry over the Trump administration's attack on Venezuela and its threats towards Greenland, MAGA is now insisting there's actually no such thing as international law. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. If you're wondering how the rest of the world feels about Trump claiming he has unilateral power to attack a sovereign nation and kidnap its leader, it turns out they're not exactly thrilled.
The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting Monday, 2 days after U.S. forces captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. The top UN official warned that America may have violated international law with its unilateral action.
The Secretary General was, quote, deeply concerned the rules of international law have not been respected. He also said the actions of the U.S. constitute a dangerous precedent.
This is the worst thing the UN has done to Donald Trump since last year when Trump visited UN headquarters and got stuck on that escalator. And, what's up, man? You're from Queens. You've never seen a broken escalator? I lived in New York for 10 years before I realized they moved. I just thought they were jagged stairs. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Up our knife steps. Also, it's not a great feeling that the same guy who claims he's running Venezuela reacts to a broken escalator by looking around like, what do I do now? Most people's first thought would be, I guess I'll just walk, but Trump looks like a guy in an infomercial who's about to look to camera and say, there's gotta be a better way. So there's deep concern within the international community over Trump's claim that the U.S. now runs Venezuela. This is a fraught moment that requires sophisticated diplomacy from a seasoned and experienced statesman. Mr. President, you have the floor. This is your chance to put the world at ease.
US President Donald Trump has mocked transgender athletes while addressing Republican lawmakers. The US President used the remarks to argue against the inclusion of transgender participation in women's sports.
The girl gets up. And you see, I want to be more, but I have somebody watching. I want to be more effusive. I want to really, But she gets it, and
Man, times have really changed. Presidents used to get impeached for having an orgasm. Also, what did he mean, I want to be more, but someone is watching? Dude, you're on TV. More than one person is watching. Oh, wait, I'm being told that was on C-SPAN, so it was just the one person. I apologize, my bad. Seriously, take a look at that's a real picture of the President of the United States. You know, Trump made Joe Biden's official portrait a picture of the auto pen, so I think it's only fair that the next Democratic president make this Trump's official portrait. By the way, I have to point out that in the course of that performance, Trump also explained that his wife, First Lady Melania Trump, doesn't like his onstage antics, while also revealing that she may not be the most astute observer of American history.
My wife hates when I do this. She said, she's a very classy person, right? She said, it's so unpresidential. She hates when I dance. I said, everybody wants me to dance. Darling, it's not presidential. She actually said, could you imagine FDR dancing? She said that to me. And I said, there's a long history that perhaps she doesn't know.
You might want to keep those sunglasses on, Melania, because you just got roasted. I mean, is this C-SPAN or a Rodney Dangerfield special? My wife, she's not the brightest bulb. She actually said, can you imagine FDR dancing? And if you think that's bad, one time I told her to surf the internet, so she went to the beach. What else? I told her to get an iPad. She went to the optometrist. I told her it was chilly outside. Did she put on a jacket? No, she grabbed a spoon. What else about Melania? It's hard because she's not so smart, and I'm very smart. I got a cognitive test from my doctor, Vinny Boombots. Also, by the way, I'd be willing to bet that even if FDR hadn't been in a wheelchair, he wouldn't have danced like Donald Trump during his speeches. It's hard to imagine FDR saying, yesterday, December 7th, a date which will live in infamy. But Trump would like to make you aware that unlike his wife, he knows a lot about one of our greatest and most influential presidents.
He was an elegant fellow, even as a Democrat, right? He was the attack by Japan, you know, he was quite elegant.
I don't have my glasses. Is that Ken Burns? I didn't know he was such an expert on history. Much has been said about our 32nd president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He rescued the country from financial collapse. He breathed new life into American civic institutions and created the modern social safety net. But perhaps no one has ever said anything astute as the attack by Japan. You know, he was quite elegant. It's very funny to talk about how elegant someone else is when you sound like an anvil just fell on your head. Trump sounds like a hungover sophomore giving an oral report in history class. Yeah, FDR, you know, the attack by Japan. He had a dog. Of course, if Trump knew anything about America's post-war history, he would know that the U.S. spent decades carefully constructing an elaborate, rules-based international order. Instead, he and his MAGA allies have decided to junk that system of international laws and cooperation in favor of a very different, much less elegant philosophy.
When people start saying international law, it's against international law, you know that they don't have no other recourse, because there really is no international law.
There's no international law that holds us back because international law is fake.
We live in a world that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power.
Every once in a while, we got to send a bunch of commandos to kick in your door and drag you into a helicopter in the middle of the night in handcuffs. And if that violates international law, well, find someone else to enforce it.
We are the dominant predator, quite frankly, force in the Western Hemisphere.
There is no such thing as international law. It is nonsense. You know what international law really is? The law of the jungle.
There is no such thing as international law. What rules the world and has ruled humanity is the law of the jungle. We rule the jungle. We are the lion.
I'm sorry, but these guys are the lamest dorks on the planet. The only place they should be talking like that is on their Call of Duty headsets. We're the dominant predator. We're the lion, and we rule the jungle. And I have a lightsaber in my bedroom, and I practice all the time in my garage. And I learned all my moves from watching anime, and my dad could totally beat up your dad. You guys are you're grown-ass men. You're talking like the bad guys in Zootopia 2, but not Andy Samberg's character. He's a good guy. Or is he? Or is he? I wouldn't trust that piece of no matter how cute he looked. Seriously, don't you feel at least a little embarrassed to say words like we are the lion, we are the predator out loud on national television? I mean, look at these guys. If any of these dweebs actually had to go into the jungle and lift a machete, I bet it would sound something like this. The conservative movement used to pretend to be about ideas like duty and virtue, and now they're going full Roman Empire and claiming they're allowed to take whatever they want by force if necessary.
President Trump is intensifying his push for the U.S. to acquire Greenland, one way or another, refusing today to rule out military force.
After the U.S. operation in Venezuela, the wife of Trump official Stephen Miller posted to social media an image of Greenland with an American flag overlaid and the word soon.
The president has been clear for months now that the United States should be the nation that has Greenland.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? Obviously, Greenland should be part of the United States.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, the United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland.
Saying you deserve a thing just because you can take it by force, if you want, is the logic of thugs and mobsters. And the worst part is these guys aren't even entertaining as actual mobsters. Can you imagine Stephen Miller in an episode of The Sopranos? Hey, I've been thinking maybe me and Stephen could take Greenland. They got tons of precious metals and Christopher, what's the matter with you? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. We are the apex predator, and we ruled the jungle. Paulie, Silvio, take this guy out to the Pine Barrens. Show him the jungle we got here in New Jersey. They're maybe getting a little worse. My impressions are maybe getting a little worse. MAGA used to pretend they were anti-war, anti-regime change, anti-nation building. Now they're claiming they have the right to use military force to take whatever they want, whether it's Greenland's territory or Venezuela's oil. They're claiming they're the world's predator, they're the lion in the jungle. But lions usually roar. I've never heard a lion that sounded like this. This has been a closer look.